Hello everyone, Adam here, and today we are talking about Manhunt, explaining the story and what the ending means. So let's dive into one of the most controversial games in Rockstar's history. Since Manhunt 1 and Manhunt 2 are so radically different in terms of story, I'll separate them into two different videos. So let's start off with Manhunt 1. Manhunt opens up with a journalist speaking about exposing someone named Lionel Starkweather and how she can't trust anyone, revealing she has one chance at getting the evidence needed, footage and testimony from a man who was executed by the state 5 hours ago. We thought to a live report from the same woman speaking about the execution of this man named James Earl Cash, who has been sentenced to death row for the past 3 years. However, James did not die in that chamber but wakes up in an abandoned building, being sedated instead of killed. Attempting to leave, a male voice informs him to put on an earpiece and tells James that he has to do what he says. Opening the door to the outside, we see the streets are abandoned and full of filth, with no one in sight. The voice tells James that the streets are littered with gangs who will kill him on sight, and the voice is recording everything on camera. Heading down the dark streets, James reads graffiti on the wall to kill the guy leading down the only path available to him, and he does. The voice confirming that he set the guy up to see if James could kill without remorse or mercy, as James suffocated the man with a plastic bag. Heading down to the basketball court, James is set up to fight a gang member one-on-one, showing the importance of stealth and why direct combat should be avoided. James successfully beats the man to death, and the gates open thanks to the man on the earpiece. With the door unlocked, James encounters more gang members, with the voice revealing each gang has their own theme. These people are the Hoods, disorganized killers consisting of criminals and off-duty cops looking for financial gain. They'll basically do anything if you are willing to give them the money to do so. James successfully kills the Hoods in his way, and the voice funnels cash down a specific path by unlocking gates, with the developers highlighting the dark and horrific tone of what's to come, with outstanding music, the beating of James's heart, and the overall presentation of the world. James escapes the mall by using a garbage chute after killing the remaining Hoods and ventures into the streets. The voice reveals the door James needs to head through, but it has a lock. James eventually locates a Hood using a crowbar and murders the man for the crowbar to break the lock. Heading into the building, James is ambushed by a man clearly aware of the camera and wants to make a show of killing Cash, but James comes out on top. Heading deeper into Carcer City, James violently murders more Hoods from the shadows, but is ambushed by mercenaries called Cerberus. Using the camera system, they jump Cash, take all of his weapons, and transport him to a new location. Before we see where James is taken, the player sees a cutscene showing off a new gang, with one of the members murdered by a larger man wearing camo gear. We finally get a name to the voice, Starkweather, the man mentioned by the reporter at the beginning of the game. The man in camo is named Ramirez and works for Starkweather to keep the gangs in line. James finds himself in the junkyard, where the area is patrolled by Skins, a group of white supremacists. Despite losing all of his weapons and no idea about the area, Cash successfully plows through multiple Skins using stealth and whatever weapons are available to him. With Starkweather guiding Cash with signs and speaking to James, eventually James does get hold of a nail gun and uses it to kill the remaining Skins and makes his way through the gate. Now at the center of the junkyard, Cash requires gas to run the magnet crane and move the refrigerator blocking the path. Killing more Skins, Cash grabs the gas and gets to the crane. Once started, the noise attracts more Skins, which Cash disposes of either directly using the nail gun he found or using the refrigerator that was blocking the path. Moving through the processing center, James gets a hold of another nail gun and exits the junkyard, but once again is ambushed by Cerberus soldiers using Starkweather's camera systems to follow Cash's movements. Before the next scene starts, we get a glimpse of a man chained up in an attic wearing a pig's head as a mask, being fed by the Cerberus agents, who are clearly unhinged at the presence of this man. Before we cut to James, we are introduced to another new gang, the War Dogs, a paramilitary gang that patrols the city zoo and Darkwoods. Unlike the previous gangs, these guys are organized and some are armed with guns, actively hunting Cash as he heads deeper into the zoo. However, Cash proves to be superior and kills his way through the war dogs as Starkweather gives Cash hints and guides him. The next area, Cash finds out that the war dogs have captured his family and will kill one of them each time Cash is spotted. However, unlike the previous times where Starkweather ordered Cash to do something to progress, Starkweather doesn't tell Cash he needs to save any of them. Cash instead risks himself to save his family, but he only needs to save one minimum to progress. Cash is successful in saving his family, telling them to run, which in hindsight wasn't a good idea. They're trapped in a heavily surveilled area full of monstrous killers, so where are they going to go? I assume Cash thought that they were safer far away from him, considering he's being monitored and is the central target for a lot of these gangs, but either way, I guess he made the best of a worse situation. He probably hoped that his family would remain hidden and hide from everyone until they were rescued. With his family rescued, Cash returns to Starkweather's game with the same military-dressed man, Ramirez, ordering a new gang to kill Cash. These people are called the Innocents, which consist of Latino goths called the Skulls, gangbangers, and Satanists. There's also the Babyfaces, mentally unstable perverts hired by Starkweather to be the muscle for the gang. Inside the mall, Cash is ordered by Starkweather to locate a tape and a video camera. This time Cash will need to be direct as everyone has a gun, forcing James to shoot his way to the top floor. Once collected, Starkweather tells James to watch the tape on a camera located in a guarded store, but once there, it's revealed the camera is broken. Starkweather then informs James there is a TV available in the bar, but the power is out. James restarts the power, but then finds out that Starkweather recaptured his family and killed them since they knew too much, sending James into a rage and hurling the TV across the room. Outside the mall, James is directed to save someone Starkweather sent for Cash. After killing the babyface guard in the area, James finds a tramp, who is a homeless man in the GTA universe. That's right, Manhunt takes place within the GTA universe. James must escort the homeless man in order to unlock all future gates. Unfortunately, the innocents in the area will kill him if seen. Interestingly, the tramp was actually supposed to be a more fleshed out character, a boss fight called the Scarecrow where he would don a mask causing his personality to shift from a docile homeless man to a psychotic killer. He was supposed to be one of Starkweather's previous stars, just like James, who went mad after killing so much. After making it through the streets and church, James comes to an abandoned factory. Like a puppet, Starkweather forces James through the factory for the sole purpose of getting more footage and allowing Cerberus to get into position. When fleeing the factory, Cerberus captures James and takes him to the Dark Ward's Penitentiary, which is now under control of the Smileys, deranged inmates of the former mental hospital who now rule the area. James is tossed in the middle of the facility and told by Starkweather to eliminate the person in the guard tower and take his body to the guard room. James slowly makes his way through the penitentiary, taking out the armed Smileys and killing the guard in the tower. Why he makes you drag the person to this room is unknown, but it could be seen as a power move, showing that he's in complete control of Cash and he has to do this. James finds himself in the prison cell ward, with Starkweather ordering Cash to kill everyone in the area as violently as possible for his entertainment. Doing so opens the second floor where armed Smileys are waiting for Cash. Making it through, Starkweather teases James about Wonderland fun. Unfortunately, he was literal, with James now charged with chasing a man in a rabbit suit. Chasing the rabbit leads James through hallways of armed Smileys with shotguns. Reaching the end of the facility, Starkweather decides that he's done with James and tries to kill him off in the workshop, but James comes out on top, killing all the Smileys in the area. Heading outside, the rabbit suit man is shocked that James survived and hides with the Cerberus soldiers in the guard tower, with James giving chase and killing him. Just then, more Cerberus soldiers head into the courtyard, and James uses a sniper rifle to pick them off. Heading out, Ramirez was lying in wait, watching the entire thing on Starkweather's cameras, and was ordered by Lionel to take out Cash. He is then ambushed, and Cash is disarmed of all his weapons and items, but Ramirez doesn't just want to kill Cash. He decides to use the remaining war dogs to hunt Cash, and gives Cash a head start. The next scene is rather odd, that it shows that something between these two scenes happened but was cut out, with James just placed outside an apartment complex surrounded by war dogs, with Ramirez mocking his man for not killing James. So Maybe there was cut content here, but I don't know. Regardless, James kills his way to the apartment building where Ramirez is located, finding the war dogs were using the building to store and carve corpses. Reaching the top, Ramirez runs out, hiding in one of the rooms, and attempts to call for backup, but James kills the remaining war dogs and Ramirez before he can. James attempts to make a run for it, but the hunters give chase, and James is saved by the reporter from the beginning of the game. She tells James everything, who is still oblivious to everything. Remember, only we know who Starkweather is and pulling the strings because of those cutscenes. James is still completely unaware. The reporter tells James about Starkweather running the operation and her plan to take him down, but she's on the run as Starkweather is aware of her plan. James agrees to help get her the evidence she needs, which is in her apartment, and they head out. However, before the next scene starts, Starkweather is heard talking to the chief of police about capturing them alive, likely wanted them for more films. To show how much influence Starkweather has over the city and getting victims, he has complete control over the city's police. James, knowing that Starkweather likely has the cops under his control, has the reporter stop blocks away from her apartment. James' instincts were right, as the police are stationed everywhere, ready to capture both James and the reporter, but they're also likely to shoot and kill him on sight, just, for the hell of it. James fights his way through the corrupt cops and escorts the reporter to her apartment, but leaves, telling her that he's going after Starkweather for everything he did, and she's his backup plan in case he fails. Heading through the city, James kills more corrupt cops and heads into the subway station, but it's swarming with more cops, who also shut down the power to the trains. James is nearly ambushed by SWAT, but evades and kills them, turning on the power and making it to the train, heading to the train yard, where more cops are waiting. But before the mission starts, the player is shown that the crazed man in the attic with the pig mask has just broken out of his chains. This is where the most hated part in Manhunt takes place. It requires you to shoot through many different cops in extremely specific situations, and due to Rockstar being notorious for their poor controls, it doesn't make this part any easier. But you have to engage with cops this way since the entire area is made of gravel, making stealth impossible, and everyone has guns. Cash kills his way through the cops in the area, and once again is ambushed by Cerberus, who have been using the cops as bait, killing them, capturing James for Starkweather, and destroying their body cameras to cover his tracks. Outside Starkweather's home, we see the reporter has gone live with her story, and her evidence is solid as it may affect Starkweather's career as a filmmaker, so everything seems to be going as planned. The Cerberus agents who captured James wanted to kill him for all the havoc he's caused, even destroying Starkweather's cameras to try and hide it. But we then see the man with the pig mask named Pixie has a chainsaw and is right outside the building. Cerberus agents go to check out the noise and get massacred by Pixie. Using the carnage to his advantage, James escapes the garage and heads to Starkweather's yard, finding remains of Pixie's victims and Starkweather's twisted art, which has either fake or real bodies hanging on hedges that are shaped like crucifixes. So, twisted man, but we already knew this. James makes use of the scavenged Cerberus weapons and makes his way through Starkweather's home. Inside, we learn that Pixie is killing them in droves, but they've managed to lock him in the attic successfully. James overhears the Cerberus leader, who reveals they've shut down the power to the elevator, and he's the only one with the key card to operate it. But most importantly, the elevator is the only way to get to Starkweather. James restarts the power and kills the Cerberus leader along with dozens of Cerberus soldiers. When heading up, Pixie hears the elevator and stops it with his chainsaw, forcing James to flee and fight the deranged killer. In a game of cat and mouse, James actively avoids the monster and attacks the inhumane Pixie from the shadows until he flees to his main home, which is the attic we saw where the Cerberus soldiers were feeding him meat. Given chase, Pixie attempts to kill James, but is lured onto a grate that nearly gives way due to his weight. James lures Pixie one more time as his insanity causes him to forget things very easily, and the grate collapses. But before he can fall, he grabs the ledge, dropping his chainsaw. James, showing no mercy, cuts off Pixie's hands, and the man drops to his death. Using the chainsaw, James tries to access Starkweather's office, but he's guarded by the remaining Cerberus soldiers, who chase James out into the attic, Just like Pigs Eat before, James uses the chainsaw to murder the remaining Cerberus soldiers before arriving at Starkweather's office. With nothing more than a pistol, Starkweather tries to flee and fight James before James cuts open Starkweather's stomach and Starkweather pleads for his life, but James ends his life by plunging the chainsaw Master Sword style into Starkweather's body before leaving. The ending shows the reporter went live with her findings, and it's starting to bear fruit, with the police finding Starkweather's snuff film ring, and it's linked to the chief of the police, Gary Schaefer, who plans to plead not guilty before the credits roll. But this isn't the end of the game. Once the credits finish rolling, we find out that the entire game was actually the snuff film. We were playing through James Earl Cash's snuff film, and it was recorded over a child's TV show. This led to the first breadcrumb that has led many to finding out that Starkweather isn't the mastermind behind this entire ring, but someone named Mr. Nasty. That's why all the kills were played out in some sort of old VHS tape. It was us watching the snuff film play out, and the end credits scene with the child show is just the ending of the tape used to record through everything. That's also why we get to see cutscenes of the characters being set up, like Ramirez getting the gangs together. That was all part of the film in order to build anticipation for whoever is watching. We also learned that despite the reporter seemingly being okay with everything based on her voice acting, she was in fact deeply traumatized with the entire situation, being interviewed by a doctor who found her wandering the streets in tears with a knife, going as far as to believe everyone was part of the snuff ring. But considering everything that she witnessed and was exposed to and researched, I can't blame her for being paranoid. Eventually she checked herself into a mental hospital. However, at the end of the interviews, which I'll link in its entirety after this sentence, it's heavily hinted that the reporter is being held against her will by the doctor who is conducting these interviews, most likely being paid by Mr. Nasty, which isn't far-fetched considering that he had control of Starkweather, who Starkweather had control of the police, so it's likely that Mr. Nasty may be paying people off in order to keep his identity secret, and anyone who does know of his existence quiet. I mean, what better way to keep a reporter quiet or to discredit her, show her that she's insane, and even though the evidence that she provided was credible, everything that she follows up with will now be taken with a grain of salt. It's actually pretty genius, but I'll link the entire interview right now, and I'll also give a timestamp of where it'll end so we can get into the rest of the video.
How are you feeling?
Leave me alone, please.
This is part of your treatment.
My treatment? Really? Good.
Yes. The treatment, you know that.
It seems to be doing me a lot of good. You guys certainly know about right and wrong. Thanks.
Do you ever want to go back to work?
Yes, I really want to go back to work. Find out some more lies. Are you kidding me, you moron? Go back to work? You've spoken to me. You know what happened.
You had a breakdown.
Yes, of course I had a breakdown. I got very scared. You know what I saw. How the hell would that make you feel? Patronizing idiot. You think you can get out of bed after you've seen that?
We all saw it on the television. You broke the story. Why does it make you so angry?
Yeah, you saw it on television. I saw it. There's a difference. I saw him, you idiot. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't hurt anyone. I'm not mad. I'm not mad.
Are you feeling any calmer?
I feel just great, thanks.
You're full of hostility. Have you been sleeping?
No, not really. I don't trust what's going to happen. Who's paying you to do this? Why are you doing this?
It's my job. Answer the questions, please. It's part of your treatment. How long were you working for the TV station?
3 years. And 2 years at a local station in the South before that. Look, there is nothing wrong with me. Nothing at all. I am fine. Completely normal. I just can't forget about what I saw. About the prison. You know, we've been over this several times before. About the fact that the government is a lie. How does that happen, Mr. State-Run Flight Deck Doctor? How does that work? Tell me that, and I'll tell you what's wrong with me. You bastard, you liar, you pathetic yes man. Answer me that!
Do you think you need sedating?
No, I don't need sedating. Don't threaten me with that crap. You know that's crap. That's your weapon, isn't it? Threaten the patient till they tell you what you want to hear. Could you call yourself a doctor? You're a witch doctor for a bunch of liars. How do you sleep at night?
We're not talking about me. Tell me about your parents.
My parents? Screw my parents. My parents are dead, and that's very sad, but I ain't here because of that. You know that. I'm here because it's a lie. The police, the state, the mayor, all of that crap. It's a lie, and you know it, and you still do this. I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Why not?
Let me see. Oh yeah, because you're using it to keep me in here? Because we've been over it 1,000 times? Because you know what I think about it? I can't go back to work. I don't sleep anymore. I'm locked up in a madhouse. My career is screwed. I will have nightmares for the rest of my life. I used to think I was a hard reporter, some real tough bitch or something, and now I'm scared of the dark. And I didn't do anything wrong. Not a thing. What did I do wrong to suffer this much?
Life isn't like that, I'm afraid. Do you not think you're improving?
Can I go home if I say yes?
Unfortunately, that's not my decision. I can only make recommendations. Dependent upon your response to each session. You understand, I merely make objective recommendations based on whether I think you're a risk to yourself or to others. It's society.
Society? What the hell is society? What is it? Play by the rules? Let me tell you the rules. The rules are these. I've seen people kill people. Men hack each other to death so some rich asshole can film it. Is that society? Is it? Is that who you're protecting from me? Look at me. Look up from that clipboard, you bastard, you dwarf, you awful little creep. Is that society? Are the police society? Is prison part of this wonderful society? What about the mental health system? People released without anyone signing the forms, but somehow I ain't one of them, because no one wants me for some film. At least they didn't. Or worse, other people, the system your society had looked after and was protecting us from, well, it didn't protect me.
Do you feel you're making any progress?
No, I don't need to make any progress. I'm not ill like that. I just saw a dead man. Yeah, very funny, I know. I saw a dead man and I'm not ill, but you know it's true.
You were found walking the streets a couple weeks after you filed that report, in tears, with a knife. That sounds pretty ill to me.
Yes, I posted the story and then I couldn't sleep. I thought I could deal with things. You know this crap. Does it surprise you? Even I could diagnose what's wrong with me. Post-traumatic stress, or whatever the hell you call it. And let's be straight about it. I did experience trauma. Not trauma like my cat died, or I'm a fat girl, or any of that shit. I saw a man get killed by the state. A guy get killed by the state with a priest and prison guys and in the chair. I was behind the glass. I saw him die. Then I spoke to him. To Cash.
Did you? But no one else saw Cash or spoke to him.
So I'm a liar now. I'm a liar? What about the police? What about the prison system? What about it? What about Starkweather? You know that's true. I had a known killer in my car. A guy I saw killed, and I was speaking to him, threatened by him, and he was dead. Your friends, the government, they killed him. How are you supposed to move on or deal with or express your feelings or any of that crap about that? Huh? How? Tell me and I'll do it. Or let me the hell out of here, you little moron. You've been no help. You make it all a lot worse. You know, he was dead. He was executed. I saw it and he was in my car alive. I'm not a freaking wacko, you prick. You know I'm not. So, why are you making me stay here?
As for James, he went missing. Considering his family was murdered and he's been declared dead of lethal injection, he's a ghost now. Whether Mr. Nasty will come after him is unknown, as Manhunt 2 decides to explore something entirely different from the first game, but it's highly doubtful that Mr. Nasty will go after James, most likely because of his incredibly dangerous attitude, but most importantly, he has no reason to go after him. He killed Starkweather, and I doubt James is aware of Mr. Nasty's existence. As far as James is concerned, he got his second chance at life. He killed the person who was involved with his entire situation and the murder of his family, so he has no reason to go after this person. But he can if he wishes, for just, you know, for the sake of murder, I guess. I don't know, it just doesn't seem like something James would do. He may be a violent killer, but he also has a goal for everything he does. Now, who is Pigsy? He was the most iconic character in the entire game. Well, Pigsy was a previous star in Starkweather's films, but eventually became uncontrollable as killing for so long drove him insane. We don't know who he was beforehand, but eventually he was locked up in the attic and was fed the bodies of previous victims, where Cash put him out of his misery. As for the mastermind for all of this, Mr. Nasty, nothing is really known about him. One can argue that the police chief, if he knew, would use that information as leverage, but considering that Starkweather was the one paying him and the corrupt cops, it's more likely that only Starkweather was aware of him and he's dead. And since the sequel puts an entire 180 on the entire Manhunt lore, it's unlikely that we'll ever know who this character is. As I stated earlier in this video, Manhunt 2 is completely different and entirely separate from Manhunt 1, so this will likely go unsolved. And that's the end of Manhunt. It's a truly dark psychological horror game that really doesn't pull any punches. It's definitely not for the faint of heart, and even as someone like myself who's been playing horror games for a long time, this game is incredibly unsettling. Yes, the visuals are archaic, but the sound design, the presentation, the tone, the narrative, all about this is incredibly disturbing, even as someone who watches and plays horror games actively. In addition, the game is just something that would never be able to come into existence in the modern day. When I was streaming this game, a lot of people asked me, do you believe this game would actually get remastered or remade? Impossible. Even a game like The Last of Us, which is incredibly violent and very brutal in their kill animations, pales into comparison with the amount of things you can do in Manhunt 1. Not to mention the game's development, which almost caused a mutiny within Rockstar. Either way, I just don't see that this game would ever get another installment, considering our current political climate when it comes to game development, and it's unlikely that this game will ever get like a remake or remaster, because if it did, it would likely only get an adults only rating. Like, even when this game released, there was an adults only rating, but if this was given the, say, GTA 5 treatment with those visuals, there is no way that any outlet would carry this game, at least from what I can tell. Like, can you imagine this game with The Last of Us level of graphics? That would just be unsettling. Either way, tell me what you thought about Manhunt, and if you've never played or experienced the game, I do have walkthroughs below. I'll be doing a video about who I believe James Earl Cash is in a separate video because I think it deserves it, and I'll be doing Manhunt 2 at a later date. I'm not sure if this video will get demonetized because, again, Manhunt is one of the most controversial and graphic games to ever be made, so hopefully it's not. If it is, consider joining my channel. There's a link below. For $2 a month, you can, get some special icons and support me. Watch my videos, leave likes. That's also a way to support me. Follow me on Twitch, AMHarbinger01. And I'll see you all next time. Thanks for watching. Stay awesome, everyone.